This is CBas, and I'm here to talk to you about Waymo, Google's self-driving car. Google started its self-driving car project in 2009. They had been inspired by Carnegie Mellon's Nav Lab. Carnegie Mellon had been building self-driving cars since the 80s. This Carnegie Mellon roboticist, Nathaniel Fairfield, joined Google as an engineer and retrofitted a Prius and a Lexus SUV. In 2010, this professor, Chris Urmson, joined, and he became the chief technical officer of the project. In 2013, Google introduced Firefly, this prototype that had no steering wheel and no pedals. In 2016, Chris Urmson left and was replaced by John Krafcik. He's the current CEO of Waymo. Google's self-driving car unit became a separate division, and the name Waymo means a new way forward in mobility. This is the Pacifica, the first self-driving minivan, and Waymo's first partnership with a major automaker, Fiat Chrysler. Self-driving cars use this sensor, which has technology called LiDAR, light detection and ranging. Beams of light bounce off of the targets, and then the amount of time it takes to return to the sensor is measured. It can see in the dark, and it can differentiate between objects, and it can tell which direction a pedestrian is facing. Google uses a full stack, top to bottom approach. They call it level 4 autonomy. All of the hardware and software is made in-house. Not only is this cost effective for them, but it helps everything work together very well. Google compares it to the 5 senses of a human. For instance, the radar picks up where the LiDAR leaves off and vice versa. John Krafcik claims that self-driving cars will solve all of these problems: accidents due to human error, time management, accessibility, and economy. In Google's vision, self-driving car is not an alternative, it's the only way. This is what John Krafcik had to say in 2017.
We know there's a better way. An almost self-driving car, what one might call aspirational autonomy, it simply won't cut it.
And this is what Chris Urmson said in 2015.
How soon can we bring it out? Well, it's hard to say because it's a really complicated problem. But these are my 2 boys. My oldest son is 11. And that means in 4.5 years, he's going to be able to get his driver's license. My team and I are committed to making sure that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Now, could this really work? Let's take a look at the problems and solutions. Perhaps in a world of only self-driving cars, they could work together. But even without human drivers, there are still going to be human pedestrians and human cyclists. This picture is from February of 2016. This is a Google self-driving car that was at fault in an accident in California. It crashed into a passenger bus when it was attempting to change lanes. This term disengages refers to whenever a real human driver has to take over in a Google simulator. Google is tracking progress based on that the number of disengages is going down. However, simulation is the main driver of improvement in Waymo's software. Now, time management. The idea is that if people are not driving, they can be doing other things. And what kinds of tasks? Well, for all of us here, schoolwork, except I can't even do that now. I get nauseous when I try to read or write in a car. And I think that's true of a lot of people. My children say the same thing. So it's not easy to do a lot of tasks in the car, like measuring or building, handling food and handling liquids. And this is shared transportation, so we're not going to have a lot of supplies on board. We can't store things in the vehicles. And multitasking is already possible on mass transit. So maybe for people that are able to do other tasks while riding in a vehicle, they could do them in the self-driving car, but should they be doing them? Remember those disengages? As passengers, shouldn't we be alert and prepared to take over? Earlier this year, an Uber self-driving car killed a cyclist in Arizona, and that was attributed to the onboard human not being attentive. It may have been prevented if the human had been paying attention. Now, accessibility. The disabled passenger is just that, a passenger. Waymo is not suddenly going to enable them to drive or to have licenses. And some disabled people don't only need a driver, they need help getting in and out of the vehicle, and they may need help and companionship at the destination. And for any of us, if we need someone along for a medical appointment or another situation, we want that companionship. It's not something you'd want to get away from. And once again, if somebody couldn't see or couldn't hear, you definitely want another person there to be standing by in case they have to take over. And currently, the disabled use mass transit, and mass transit is very accessible, and it's also independent for them. Let's look at economy. According to John Krivchik, our cars sit parked for 94% of the time, and he says that's what would make the self-driving car more economical. However, if our cars are sitting there parked, they are conserving resources and they're extending the lives of the vehicles. The business model for Waymo is a continuous fleet, so that's going to be a lot of wear and tear on the vehicles and on the software and hardware. So that could get quite expensive. And it could produce more waste than independent ownership. It is very likely to cut jobs in transit and other automobile-related fields and driving fields. And in a self-driving car, who would be responsible for a traffic violation and who would be liable in an accident? As it is now, we all have our own car insurance. In Google's vision, no one has licenses and no one owns the vehicles, so it would be unconscionable to expect us to insure them. If Google is liable, as they should be, what kind of insurance are they going to offer? If it is comprehensive, that could get very, very expensive, and then it's going to outweigh the benefit of the self-driving car. People like their cars and people like driving. It's more than just a means of getting from point A to point B. A car reflects your style and your personality. A car is a member of the family. For a product or service to be successful, people have to be better off with it. Are we better off with Waymo?